dealing with an elementary child that is struggling to make the transition from picture books to chapter books? Are you a parent of a child who is showing so much resistance in beginning to read the chapter books? Or are you lost on where to begin this journey towards the world of chapter books? Well, you are in the right place then. Hi, I am Gomati from the Little Story Station, and today we are going to be looking at book recommendations, chapter book recommendations for 6 to 8-year-olds. So stick on and let's jump into the recommendations right away. I often get this question from parents that my child is able to read picture books all right. She is happy with the picture books. She wants plenty of pictures in the book, and and then she is all right to read the book. However, when I offer her a book with chapters in it, and less of graphical pictures in it, then she doesn't want to pick the book, and in fact she completely stops reading the book. And I've always been asked, what are the right choices of books that we could offer to children who display similar difficulties in making the transition. So this is on popular demand that we are going to be looking at top 20 book recommendations for children that is showing so much of resistance to make that transition, and how to make that transition smoother. The world of chapter books are quite different when compared to picture books. Picture books are very colorful. They give you everything to imagine for the child to compare with the words in the in the book and relate to the pictures that are being covered and the storyline that is covered in the book. However, when it comes to chapter books, oftentimes children do not want to make that transition because they are deprived of any color or picture or illustrations which they are so used to until the age of 5 or 6. So we do not have to pick books that are completely deprived of these pictures or illustrations. So the recommendations that I am going to be giving today will slowly help you transition from the picture book to the chapter book world for your child. So without further ado, let us jump on. And I am going to be covering 20 books, so stick on until the end so you will know all the books, and I am going to be covering in a sequence. So you have to stick on till the end to see how that sequencing follows. So now to the recommendations. Children at 5 or 6 may already be exposed to Dr. Seuss's books. So we are going to be picking the books that are little voluminous in Dr. Seuss's books and make that transition slowly into chapter books. So I am recommending the Lorax as my first book recommendation for the chapter books. If you look at the content inside the book, they are pretty voluminous. They are more intense when compared to a chapter book, and this will help them also look at the colorful pictures yet read a lengthy story and then be comfortable with it. And there are other Dr. Seuss's books that I would also recommend that you pick up, including the Ertle and the Turtle, and the Horrid Here's Who, and other books that are pretty bulky and voluminous in the Dr. Seuss series. Now moving on to the second book recommendation. Julia Donaldson is a very favorite author for children in the primary age group. Now you tell Julia Donaldson's name and oftentimes they are so happy that those books are something that they love. So it is a good idea to look at The Snake Who Came to Stay, and this is by Julia Donaldson, and this is a chapter book. If you look at it, it is a chapter book. However, the content inside are pretty limited, and also have laborious pictures inside, and so this will help them to make that transition pretty easy. This is a very good book even in terms of the storyline, and this is about the snake that came to stay as a pet in the the lead character. She wanted to bring a snake as a pet into her house, and how the storyline turns out is what is covered in this book. And this is a very warm book, and I really love reading that book out loud to my son as well. Next in my recommendation is from Jeremy Strong, and this is My Dad's Got an Alligator. Once again, this book has a lot of although this book that I've picked is a tiny book, so the book has a lot of words in it. However, if you pick this title in a bigger format, this is a perfect book to start looking at a longer elaborate story where it talks in detail about the alligator, and how the family has fun with the alligator that the child's dad has in this story. Next in my list is Horrid Henry, and this is the early reader series that I have in my hand. And Horrid Henry is about this boy Henry who behaves who is horrid and does not want to share, makes a lot of trouble at school, and also has a lot of trouble at home, and pulls and troubles his little brother Peter. And how this book also teaches about how you should not be horrid. And in this particular book here, although it is a chapter book, it has colorful illustrations and very little lines of stories within each page, and this gets the child hooked into looking at the illustrations and also read the book at the same time. And this is also a good book to read aloud to your child, and also talk about the values and talk about how not to behave and what not to do if you have siblings and friends, and how to share and all that good stuff, and you could strike such conversation with your child. And this Horrid Henry book of series has plenty of stories, covering from Horrid Henry Gets Rich to Horrid Henry Meets the Queen, and many other titles in this book series. The next in my list is Roald Dahl's The Magic Finger. This is a very good story, and recommended oftentimes in the first year of your transition into chapter books. This is about a girl who has magical powers, and and what she does with her magical powers, and how she turns human beings into animals, and all that. And it is a funny story. Children find it very funny, and also it talks about how the child, the lead character, the girl in the story is so responsible about things around her. So this is a good recommendation to go with. The next on my list is a series of books, but I have picked just this one. This is the Hook book, and this is by Indian authors. This is a bunch of books that is published by the Duckbill publications, and these are called the Hook books. And Hook books are pretty Indian, and talks about a lot of stories around what happens in India. And in this book particularly, My Daddy and the Well, it's talking about this child and his dad, and how there was a well in the village that the father lived or used to live when he was young, and when he moved to the city, how the agriculture and the farming took a toll, and how the dad feels so at home when he goes to visit his village and all that. So this is a very good story, especially to talk about the culture in India, and what happens in the Indian setup. Next on my list is William Tell series of books. And William Tell, once again, like the Horrid Henry storybooks that I was talking about, has a lot of illustrations, and very interesting, and get the child hooked into the story with the illustrations and very minimal content inside. This is a very good book to read aloud to your child before you offer the child the book to read on her own. Next on my list is a series of books, once again, called the Whole Books. Whole Books are a series of about 20 titles that are published by Duckbill Publications, and these are written and illustrated by Indian authors and illustrators. And like the Hook book series, the Whole Book series also talks about a lot of incidents that happen in schools and environment in India, and each of these stories talk about friendships, and what happens in the school environment, what happens in a book book show or a ride to school in the school bus, and so on and so forth. And this is a very good place to start looking at making the transition for your child into chapter books. And this is recommended for young readers, and look for these stars and dots at the end of the book in the back cover, and you can't go wrong with picking these books. Next on my list is Dirty Birdie. Dirty Birdie is a very funny series of books about this boy, Birdie, and a lot of dirty things dirty habits that he has. And once again, this is also rich with illustrations, and it will be easier for the child to make the transition into chapter books. Particularly, this talks about this guy Birdie and all his dirty habits. So this will be a right place for you to talk to your child about any of these habits that the child has, and how to not follow these habits, and what happens and how you're ridiculed when you follow these dirty habits, and what are the consequences. So it could be a right place to strike those conversations with your child. And the next on my list is this very popular series of books called the Magic Tree House. Magic Tree House has over 40 to 50 titles, and this is well recommended for age group of 6 to 9, and some books are to the very young beginning readers in the chapter book world. It caters to the 6 to 7 year olds, and some caters to the 8 to 9 year age group. And these books are oftentimes about adventures, and if your child is all about stories and adventures and a good storyline, these are very good books to start with. And Magic Tree House is a very popular series of books in the United Kingdom and the United States, and so you can't go wrong with the Magic Tree House series of books. And next in my recommendation is particularly for girls, and this is about Amelia Bedelia. Amelia Bedelia is this girl, and she's the prettiest, the prompt, good child, and what happens around her world, and it's all covered in the series of books. And once again, there are plenty of illustrations, and the story itself is so interesting and particularly strikes strikes a good chord with girls. And yeah, this is a very good book that you could pick for your child. The next on my recommendation is Fantastic Mr. Fox by Roald Dahl. A lot of these Roald Dahl books are illustrated by Quentin Blake, and his illustrations are so funny. And I was also showing the magic finger a little while ago, and these illustrations are so funny and strikes good chord with the children. And this is a very good book and recommended book recommendation for 6 to 7 year olds, and you should definitely have this book in your library. The next one is once again about Horrid Henry, but this one as you can see is not for the early readers. So this could be offered as a follow-up to the early reader Horrid Henry book. And this strikes well with the boys, and especially with boys who are very naughty and finds naughty things very funny. This book has a lot of, this is a series of books. This one is about, Horrid Henry gets rich quick. There are, other books in the series, and they are all very funny. Yet it is about this guy, Henry, who is mean and horrid with, people around him. The next in my list is Blue Umbrella by Ruskin Bond. Ruskin Bond is India's favorite children author. And this book is about a girl who owns this blue umbrella, and she takes this blue umbrella with her wherever she goes. And she even exchanges it for one of her prized possessions. And how she's so close to this blue umbrella, and she's so proud to take this umbrella wherever she goes, and what happens with the blue umbrella is what is covered in this book. Next on my list is Ivy and Bean, Take the Case. This book is about, the series of books Ivy and Bean is about the two girls, Ivy and Bean, and and what happens in their life. This book in particular is about this girl Bean, and she watches a movie with her mom, and how she's influenced by the movie, and what happens as an after effect of watching that movie with her mom. So Ivy and Bean books are very good series of books. Once again, these are rich with illustrations, and they strike well with girls, especially because this is about the two girls, and the girls often find it very interesting to read this book. And this is more of adventure and mystery all combined together, so goes well with children who are very intuitive at around the age 6 or 7. Next on my list is The Kingdom of Renly. Kingdom of Renly is a book full of adventures, and it's a world of fiction, mythology, and adventure and mystery all combined together in this book, in the series of books. And the book is so well written and has a very rich language and vocabulary, and it helps with the child in increasing and expanding their vocabulary. Also, if you look at the content of the book, they are spaced so well, big letters, and children are often turned off by small lettered books, and this one on the other hand has big letters and good illustrations, and it's also very light to carry, and hence the child finds it very easy to make the transition and kind of explore these books. And these set of books have a lot of mystical creatures like the dragons, and dinosaurs and all that that travel along with the lead character of this girl and a boy in the book. So children find it very fascinating and takes them to the world of fantasy. So this is a very good book to start introducing them to fantasy and fiction genre of books. Next in my list is Just So Stories by Rudyard Kipling. These are a collection of a lot of smaller books, or rather smaller subjects, like how the whale got his throat, how the camel got his hump, how the rhinoceros got his skin, and so on and so forth. So each of these the small chapters talk about science and how things started to evolve and all that. Although this book that I have do not have a lot of illustrations, the story itself is so gripping, and this is a very must read recommendation for 7-8-year-old children. Next on my list is Amelia Jane and the series of books. This one is Amelia Jane again. Naughty Amelia Jane is the first of this series of books. And Amelia Jane is a doll in one of the child's toy house, and how this this doll is so naughty and causes trouble to other toys in the toy chest. And this strikes well with especially girls, and this is a very good series of books to begin with. This was the first chapter book that my child was interested in to begin reading. And the way I go about with making the transition is to read aloud the chapter books to the child. And once the child gets comfortable with the storyline and gets curious into the story, and then you offer the child to read one book, one page, all by himself or herself, and then you read one page, and you do that kind of a reading, and eventually they will pick and read the book. The last two recommendations in this episode today are one of the favorites in my house with my child. These are Captain Underpants and Dogman series of books. And Captain Underpants is about two boys, George and Harold, about the age of 6 years, and how they are so drawn towards drawing comics, and this story is all about comics and introduction to comics. Although this book is not filled with a lot of comics, the boys imagine that everything around them is how it gets converted into a comic, and and how a lot of things around them become so funny. They both laugh at everything around them, and particularly this does not fly well with their Professor Croup, who is a very strict officer, and how they convert their professor or the principal into a Captain Underpants, a Superman, and all the adventures that they have with this principal. This book, especially I would recommend for a few reasons. One, it strikes a lot of imagination with the child and creativity with the child. There are, in every book, there are, in the center, they have this concept called the fliporama. The fliporama, what it does is, causes, when you flip the page, it has a nice quick animation going on. So I've seen with my child, trying to imitate this fliporama concept and create a lot of illustrations all by himself. Secondly, this book talks about how to look at the world in a very funny way and how to find humor in everyday life. And thirdly, it is rich in a lot of vocabulary, and a lot of new words are introduced, complex words are introduced in the series, and it will be a good starting point for the child at around 6-7 year old to pick up a dictionary and refer to the meaning, and understand words and expand their vocabulary. So I highly recommend, if your child is not into chapter books and resists a lot of chapter books, to start with Captain Underpants, and you have the color version. This is a full color version of the book, and becomes very interesting for the child to read. And Dogman is full of comics. It is again by Dave Pilkey, but this is completely full of comics. Although they say that comic hampers the child's imagination, and is not recommended to begin with, I would not deprive the child of the world of comics. Especially after I came across Dogman, I would definitely recommend this book for about a 7-year-old child, because this book talks about good and bad, and there's a clear demarcation between what is good and what is bad, and it keeps reinforcing goodness over bad choices for the child. Alright, so those are the top 20 chapter book recommendations for beginner readers. I hope you are able to introduce these books in that order, because the books that I've covered in order from number 1 to number 20 slowly transitions the child into the complexity of chapter books. So I hope you follow that through the series, and I hope this selection of books help you and your child make that transition from picture books to chapter books more smoother. Leave in the comments below if you would like for me to cover a separate set of chapter books for boys and girls, because when it comes to chapter books and at the age of 7, 8 and 9, children become very particular about what kind of books they want to read, and hence please leave in the comment below if you want me to cover more such topics. And if you like today's episode, please like, share and subscribe, and I will see you in another episode with another set of book recommendations. Until next time, take care and read a lot of books for your children. And all of these chapter books that I showed you today can easily be a choice for a bedtime story or a read aloud with your child. So all the best, and take care. Bye.